tells the government what it can't infringe upon you. It doesn't prevent you from doing what you want. It doesn't prevent private companies from doing what they want. The rights belong to those private companies, and again, if you believe in capitalism, you believe that the market has the right to decide. Welcome back to the channel today, everybody. So today I want to talk about rights, and as laid out by the Constitution, and why I believe there's no such thing as sex-based rights, trans rights, etc. We only have human rights. So this is an area I believe that progressives, conservatives, and even some libertarians get wrong. Now, I understand that I have a very American view of what rights are, which I believe we are the only country in the world that actually respects our inherent rights. I also know that what I'm about to say can be very misconstrued, depending on your own biases. So I just ask that you listen to this video with an open mind. It might be a different perspective that you've probably never heard before or never even considered before when it comes to rights. But before I get started, make sure you click that subscribe button below. Really helps us out here at the channel. Helps me out, helps me be able to bring more content to you guys, so thank you. Okay, so now let's get to it. If rights are inalienable, then it is impossible for one's group's rights to interfere on another group's, right? So I always look at this, I'm looking at this from a trans perspective, right? You have women's rights versus trans rights, for example. I can believe that, yes, women have the right to their own spaces, but trans women also can be welcomed into those spaces. This is because when we talk about these two groups, we leave out the key ingredients as to whose rights are actually being violated in this, which is businesses. A business should have every right to make the rules of their establishment. If you don't like the rules that they decide, don't go there. The market can absolutely decide, and I personally don't want to force anybody to take my money that doesn't want it. I mean, we don't live in the 1950s when segregation is a thing, right? We've seen support for minority businesses. I mean, just look at last year at all the ads and companies that are saying, you know, support, you know, black-owned businesses. And look at the corporatization of pride. Companies wouldn't do that if it wasn't the popular thing to do. And in general, this is less about equality and the opportunity to exceed, and more about equity, whereas the same effort yields equal results. Now, I want to go and talk a little bit about WeSpa in California. If you know, WeSpa was a trans person was walking around the spa naked with their, you know, male parts out, and it caught the eye of several female customers, especially since there was young ladies in there as well, not just adults. But I'm not sure that WeSpa is who we should be angry at this point. I don't know. I don't know all the facts of what their owners believe and everything like that. But it's civil rights legislation in California that has kind of created this situation. California has self-ID legislation, meaning a business can't deny someone access to women's spaces if they self-identify as the gender that is allowed in those spaces. So any man off the street can self-identify, even if they don't present as female, they can self-identify as a female and be put into those women's spaces. If you remember my video that I did about California and their prison system back in, I think, November, I talked about how dangerous this situation could be. It's obviously dangerous for many reasons. The case of WeSpa as a pre-op transsexual woman, I find this behavior to be disgusting, and it really makes me doubt that person's gender dysphoria. For other trans women, anytime you are granted access to women's spaces, there has to be respect. You are most certainly a guest, and it is a privilege that that company has afforded you, not a right. In this case, we don't know if that's true, because like I said, the owners that we spot might think just like me. They might say that this isn't okay. But in the state of California, they can't have that opinion, because if they say that this is not okay, their business will probably be shut down. Especially when you have groups like Antifa outside rioting and causing violence. It would be, Antifa would probably destroy it. But the laws in California absolutely violate the free market choice. Like I said, it's not a sex-based rights to have spaces of your own. And it's also not trans rights to go into a space that you are not afforded access to. And it should be the business's right to choose. Now, let's talk about Masterpiece Cake Shop in Colorado. We know this is the Supreme Court ruling that said that he was able to deny baking custom cakes for gay weddings. And it was because of his religious objection that they used. But I believe this goes beyond his First Amendment rights. He should be allowed to deny business to anyone for any reason. I mean, don't get me wrong, I agree with this ruling, but his religion doesn't make him special. And it has probably caused more issues for the religious in this country and him. Because it left the door open for the left to continue to harass him and try to shut him down with tying his money up in these erroneous lawsuits. And what I mean is by he's not special is that an atheist should be able to have the same thing. An atheist should be able to deny access to people that come into their shop for the same reasons. If they have an objection to the wedding itself, whether Christian, atheist, Muslim, Jew, whatever your religion, you should be able to deny anybody that service. Like I said, I don't want to force somebody to take my money that doesn't want my money. I mean, there's plenty of other places out there that I can go spend my money that do want my money. And then let's just talk about gay rights. Okay? I don't believe that the fight for gay marriage was about gay rights either. Gay people could always enter into their own contracts of marriage ever since homosexuality became legal in this country. Which is what marriage is, unless you are a religious person. It is a contract between two people. But gay rights was about government's recognition of said marriage, which the only incentive for that is because government has tied stuff like tax breaks to marriage, to which I contend is discrimination against single people. I don't believe the government should be involved in marriage at all. Marriage licenses were first implemented in the 1920s to prevent interracial marriage. The win for gay rights was the first that also began to establish this notion that government gives you rights. The government cannot give you rights, they cannot afford rights, they can only take your rights away. Which is why the Constitution tells the government what it can't infringe upon you. It doesn't prevent you from doing what you want. It doesn't prevent private companies from doing what they want. The rights belong to those private companies, and again, if you believe in capitalism, you believe that the market has the right to decide, and the market will decide what is best. And this kind of goes into social media companies. Normally, I would agree that they are private industries and should be able to ban whoever they want from their platforms. However, these companies receive billions of dollars from the federal government. Now, I believe we need to end all government subsidies of business, period. But in order to prevent the government from circumventing the Constitution and using these platforms and their money that they give to these platforms as bribery to shut down speech that they don't like and circumvent the First Amendment, I think that we need to say that if a social media companies receive subsidies from the government, then they are beholden to the Constitution. They cannot deny somebody's First Amendment rights because they are taking money from the federal government. The federal government can use it as bribery to silence their opponents. And though while what they are doing may be constitutional, it's not right. And I think that they should get out of the subsidization business of these companies. But once again, thank you for joining this channel. I hope I was able to give you a perspective that makes a little bit more sense. Again, just think about it when you're looking at whose rights are being violated. Just remember that one person's rights cannot violate another person's rights. And if they do, then they're not really rights. They're not inherent. And then you have to look to see deeper whose rights are actually being violated in that instance. I want to protect women just as I want to protect trans people. I want what's right for everybody. And I really think that means giving businesses back their option to make those rules. I mean, if somebody says they want me to use the men's restroom in their establishment, I'm probably not going to go to that establishment. It's just basic fact. I don't feel comfortable there. And I have no issue with that company making that rule. I might go onto Yelp and Yelp review it or whatnot. But the point is that freedom of choice does not come from freedom from consequences. That is free market values. And if you're trying to force somebody else's services or like free healthcare, for example, that's not a right. That's not your right because somebody else has to provide that service to you. You do not have right to somebody else's money, labor, or any of their other stuff without their permission. And you can't, and asking the government to force them to give up those rights is tyrannical. It's not American, and we need to really get back on track of what we are talking about when we talk about rights. But before you go, make sure you go click the subscribe button to the channel. As always, it's been a pleasure having you.